current context. So I would like to share some reflections on why the world economy has been unable to revive. Then secondly, I would like to discuss a little bit recent developments about the global creative economy. Then the whole efforts concerning the transition to a green economy. And finally, to bring some considerations on how we can move towards a greener creative economy. We think particularly on Schumpeter and how we see the whole process of the creative destruction in the present context, in which economic development is quite imbalanced, and those with more resources can invest, can innovate, and can produce. And in the same way, some firms and sectors can gain market shares while others will lose. And we also see that there is a very strong movement of social mobility that may reflect difference in talents and in choices. And is in this context that we can place here what we call the creative professionals, in which the most talented and creative are likely to prosper. And also the fact that creative people usually seek better paid occupations in cities, in urban areas, and these urban workers, they eventually take the social and political power to reduce income inequality. So if you think in terms of the thinking of Galbraith. And is in this context that the accumulation of capital and knowledge tends to concentrate wealth and economic power, and that we could see the Schumpeter view in which new products and production processes will gradually replace old ones in the process of creative destruction. I thought it's very important to bring back this thinking, because I think it's very actual today. And the creative economy, indeed, when we talk about creative economy, we talk about creativity, knowledge, but also in terms of access to ICT tools. And these are really the key instruments that are really driving economic growth and innovation today, and has been really influencing and accelerating social, economic, and social process. The global market for creative goods and services has been very strong over the last decade. And this brings us to the reflection on the green economy. So what really means the green economy? In fact, the term appeared in the UK in a report that was called the Blueprint for a Green Economy. This was in the late 80s. And there is not a unique definition of a green economy. In the United Nations, we have been discussing a lot in terms of all different agencies that are involved in this area. And there is a risk of misusing a little bit this new concept. And it could be, there are debates whether the green economy is a sector or is a set of best practices or good policies. But I think the important is not really the definition. What really means for green economy, it's really to bring the issue is to make sustainable development operational, how to do it. And I think this is the main concern. So, in the global economy, we can see what we are experiencing. It's really this transition that from over-consumerism to something that we would call ethical consumerism. We have been a society that has been over-consuming, but now we are in a moment in which all of us, not only producers, but also all of us as consumers, we have to question in terms of to try to find what are the true cultural, economic value of everything we create, we buy, and we sell. And it's in this context that the importance of to promote more consciousness in terms of the use of the biodiversity, how to deal and how to reduce low carbon emissions, particularly in terms of find solutions for climate neutrality. And also because we see that maybe in the future, business, in order to be successful, they have to respond in terms of to have a responsible behavior. And this not only as regards the environment, but also as regards communities. And in this technological transformation, there will be, of course, a very deep impact in production structures, and certain transition costs may have. There will be a lot of trade-offs, and this is what we have been seeing. But economic growth and environmental strategies, in this sense, should and have to be complementary. And what are the main challenges behind this big discussion about how we go about the green economy? First, in terms of jobs, because we all know that in this transition, a number of jobs will disappear and other new jobs will be created. But the point is that not necessarily in the same places, in the same countries. So this is an issue. The other issue is the agriculture, how to feed our population. There is also the question in terms of trade, how to really avoid the risk of what we call a possible green protectionism, in which there will be some subsidies, so how to deal with that. And this is in discussion in the context of WTO, it's in discussion in terms of national policy, so this is really a key issue. And of course, at the level of industries and the potential to loss of competitiveness of key sectors, so how to develop and put in place, for instance, smart energy policies. In terms of technology, how to avoid the green divide between transfer of technology. So all this are really very important considerations. And this is in this context that we also have to rethink in terms of investment policies for the green economy. And particularly if you think in terms of not only public investment, but also private sector investment, that all these packages have to include some sustainable development objectives. And these investment packages should have really a long-term strategy in terms of capital, in terms of market access, in terms of skills, but also in terms of know-how and technological transfer. And in this context, it's very important to ensure that the policy effectiveness will depend on the design and implementation of international investment agreements. And this is why we can also see a change in investment policy environment from now on. As I mentioned before, we had the big reflection in terms of the Sustainable Development Agenda, and in particular one of was some shortcomings because there was a lot of expectation about the outcome of this conference, but there are certain things that could have moved fast, but it was very difficult to find consensus in a number of topics. One of the things is the fact that to include the culture as among the 3 pillars that we have on sustainable development. That is we have is based on economic, social, environment, and why not to include the culture. But there was still different views on that. Another important issue was to ensure the full respect and the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, and this was adopted 20 years ago. The big discussions about the implementation failures of the Kyoto Protocol and the Agenda 21, and we know that just last week in Doha there was a very important UN conference on climate change, in which the fact that the Kyoto Agreement was expiring this year in December 2012 and now has been expired for 2020 because countries need more time to look into this agenda. So, and what was also very important is the key issue of how we bring together issues of poverty and financing of the green economy in this period of transition. So these are some of this financing fund that is supposed to have 2% of GDP to finance new products, new projects in this area. So I just move a little bit faster to conclude, and as final sector, what are the moves towards what we call a green and creative economy? Of course, we have all this UN conference, as I just mentioned, and the fact that for the UN, the green economy means sustainable development, and is the search for alternative growth strategies that each country has to look for and to find its own way. But of course, the challenge is to make this green economy inclusive and also to see all the implications, the challenges and opportunities. But what is important is really to see that we are in a very important period of very profound changes. And it's in these changes that the creative economy and sustainability goes hand in hand, because creativity and intellectual capital are inexhaustible human resources that can be found everywhere. Ideas and skills are the main inputs for creative production, and different from other sectors that need non-renewable natural resources. So most creative industries can be environmentally friendly, and they have a very low carbon and water footprints. So this means that we put in place policies for the creative economy. We are also favoring developments in terms of sustainable development. And that creative industries is knowledge and services intensive, so it has the ability to create products that are compatible with environment concerns. So it's in this context that we have to promote a more responsible use of biodiversity, and also to ensure that maybe we need international cooperation to set up this green fund that can be also used to support projects on the creative economy. So to conclude, I would like to in my view, the green economy and the creative economy can be a win-win solution, and we have similarities in the search for effective policy response to reinforce these two sectors. The creative economy and the green economy potentially can reinforce each other, because both they required what we call multidisciplinary actions and partnerships involving